On 11 March 2011, Japan experienced its most powerful earthquake in history that killed almost 20,000 people and destroyed homes, buildings, public property, and affecting lakhs and lakhs of Japanese citizens in just a matter of 6 minutes. But what does this have to do with my first anime movie experience in the theater? One of Japan's most iconic anime filmmakers, Makoto Shinkai, his latest film Suzume released in India a couple of weeks ago, and in every theater it's in, the tickets have been sold out, and when I finally got to see it, I understood why. This fantasy adventure is about a 17-year-old schoolgirl called Suzume who runs away from home and goes on this epic road trip mission to different abandoned places across Japan to close a bunch of doors. If she doesn't do this, a bunch of big red worms get released into the world, and when they fall onto the earth, they end up causing earthquakes. If this crazy plot wasn't enough, her partner on this mission is a three-legged chair, and the villain who's stopping them from accomplishing this mission is this cute kitten. Yeah, like every Makoto Shinkai film, even though I've seen only 3 of them until now, it's an understatement to say that Suzume looks and feels fantastic. The level of visual detail, the high contrast lighting, the sunlight that you can feel while sitting inside an AC theater, the camera angles and the 360-degree camera movements that elevate the action, and the static shots filled with silences, and how weather and climate plays a part as a separate character itself. And what really takes it to the next level is the sound design and the out-of-the-world soundtrack. It's been 3 days and the main theme song, I can't get it out of my head. Now I'm convinced that this anime format is made for the big screen movie experience. But beyond how technically sound it is, one thing that I really loved about Suzume was the core concept and the emotion behind it. In this fantastic interview with Crunchyroll, Makoto Shinkai talks about the impact of the 2011 earthquake and what it did to his country, its people, and himself as a citizen and as an artist. When the country has been through such a tragedy, he went through a period of guilt, and he felt that his work wasn't really impacting anyone. It wasn't helping any of the earthquake victims. But eventually, he understood that the only way to deal with such a big tragedy is through stories, through emotional expression, through art. There's this quote that I keep going back to: art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted. The second half of this quote is a different topic, but the first half, it makes so much sense for this context because the most impactful art, whether it's poetry, music, or movies, they're all born out of tragedy, and they have the power to give power to human beings to deal with such tragedies in their own life. This made Makoto change his mindset about his art, and in every film after that, you can see that he's made natural disasters and climate change a part of his narrative, and he does the same thing in Suzume as well. To take the element of an earthquake, something every Japanese person can relate to, and then tell an entertaining yet extremely emotional story around it. Instead of just forgetting about the tragedy, he creates a path to closure for the older generations who actually experienced that tragedy, and a reminder for the younger generation who hasn't experienced it, telling them that this was a moment in history that shouldn't be forgotten, giving them strength to deal with the disasters in their own lives, while also telling them how it's an opportunity to help other people in times of such a tragedy. And that's powerful. What I also loved was how in such an emotional story, there's so much effortless humor that's woven in, especially thanks to this cat who's on a road trip of his own, and how they managed to evoke humor and emotion with this 3-legged chair chasing that cat to turn him back into his human form. At the same time, the film does have a few flaws, a few cinematic liberties that they've taken for Suzume's character, her actions, and her love story. Firstly, she's a 17-year-old girl who meets Sota, an older college student, and minutes after seeing him, she's like, okay, let me just leave my entire life behind and go around with this complete stranger around the country. Maybe this is the Indian in me speaking, and I know it's a fantasy film, but still, in no time, she falls deeply in love with Sota, even after he gets turned into a chair a day after meeting him and knows absolutely nothing about him. I won't say that the love story is the main part of the film, but it's still an important part, and I found it a bit inappropriate, a bit ingenuine, and I couldn't buy into their epic love story. Another minor complaint was the pacing of the film in the second half. The entire story is structured in the form of 4 to 5 set pieces, and in the first half, it quickly moves from one set piece to the other, but in the second half, after the third or fourth set piece, there's a huge pause, and it takes its own sweet time to get to the final act, and you feel the duration during that time. The most heartbreaking fact about the film, which is not a flaw of the film itself, but in us as a society, because originally this story was supposed to be a lesbian love story, and the chair character was supposed to be female, but the studio executives felt that it was too risky a project, and then they decided to change the chair into a male character. But I'm not someone who believes that a film has to be absolutely perfect for it to be good. I don't think the characters have to be flawless, because when you look at the positives of the film, the visual and emotional beauty of it, and the cultural significance, you feel that the few flaws that the film has can easily be overlooked. What we're experiencing right now in India is sort of a cultural shift. I knew that there were anime fans in India, but I had no idea about the level of craze that exists for anime, that there would be houseful shows and a Japanese filmmaker would be invited to come to India to meet the fans over here. But my only question is, the way Suzume told a Japanese story for the world using the power of anime, can India ever rise to use animated storytelling to tell our own Indian stories? Let me know your thoughts about this and the film itself in the comments if you've already watched it. If not, please go check it out in the biggest screen with the best sound system possible. It's going to be worth it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.